The name of the book is America's White Table. It was just a little white table, but it brought tears of pride to my Uncle John's eyes the Veterans Day he came for dinner and stood by it. Set for one person, even though nobody would be eating at it. It was just a little white table, but earlier that day, Mama had told Gretchen, Samantha, and me the little table we were setting for Veterans Day was just like the ones that have stood across America in the dining halls of the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force since the Vietnam War ended. The tables honored the men and women who serve in America's armed forces, especially those in action, our MIAs, and those held prisoner of war, our POWs. It was just a little white table, but it felt as big as America when we helped Mama put each item on it, and she told us why it was so important. We use a small table, girls, she explained first, to show one soldier's lonely battle against many. We cover it with a white cloth to honor a soldier's pure heart when he answers his country's call to duty. We place a lemon slice and grains of salt on a plate to show a captive soldier's bitter fate and the tears of families waiting for loved ones to return, she continued. We push an empty chair to the table for the missing soldiers who are not here. We lay a black napkin for the sorrow of captivity and turn over a glass for the meal that won't be eaten, she said. We place a white candle for peace, and finally a red rose in a vase tied with a red ribbon for the hope of all our missing who will return someday. Mama finished speaking just as sunlight spilled on the table and filled the overturned glass. It was just a little white table, but it suddenly made me want to burst with a feeling I couldn't explain when Mama told us how much our setting the white table would mean to Uncle John that night. Then she told us something we didn't know. Our Uncle John, who gave us big bear hugs and spun us with airplane twirls and called me his Katie girl, was a POW in Vietnam before we were born. It was just a little white table, but it gave us the courage to ask Mama what happened to Uncle John in Vietnam. She quietly told us his story. When Uncle John served in Vietnam, he was sent on a rescue mission, and his helicopter was shot down behind enemy lines, she began. And he and his 3 crew members were taken prisoner. One crew member named Mike had serious wounds from the crash, but Uncle John and the other men tried to help Mike get better and persuaded a guard to bring Mike medicine. Then one day, a guard looked away. Uncle John and the others had a chance to escape, but Mike was still too sick to go. So Uncle John stayed behind because he wouldn't leave a fellow soldier so alone so far from home. But how did Uncle John get free? We asked Mama. Sometime later, Uncle John had a chance to escape again, and somehow he was able to take Mike with him, carrying him on his back and collecting just enough rainwater and big leaves to keep them alive until Uncle John found an American infantry unit to help them. But even though Uncle John did everything he could to bring Mike home alive, Mike's wounds were just too serious and he died before the rescue helicopter landed. I know that Mike was only 20 years old and he dreamed of playing football, but he loved America enough to give his life for his country when duty called. And I know how much Uncle John loves America too, but he learned when helping Mike that a soldier risks his life for a fellow soldier because the best of our country lives in every man and woman who would lay down their life for you too. It was just a little white table, but it needed words of gratitude like Mama's Thanksgiving meal. So before Uncle John's arrival for dinner, Gretchen and Samantha and I decided to put 3 gifts of our own on the table to honor our veterans. Gretchen colored pictures of all the objects on the table, and Samantha wrote the words, "My country, 'tis of thee," as a tribute in song. But I didn't know what I, a 10-year-old girl, could ever put on a table that was as important as each veteran's gift of freedom to me. It was just a little white table, but I looked at it all dinner long, and in the quiet inside me, I could almost hear the silent voices of the empty chairs saying, "Remember us, please." We are real people, like your Uncle John and Mike, who left families and friends, homes and dreams of our own to protect your birthright of liberty from disappearing as easily as sunlight from glass. It was just a little white table, but it took my words away when I hugged Uncle John goodnight and wanted to thank him for serving our country so bravely. So I just hugged him even harder and told him I loved him. Uncle John hugged me back even harder than I had hugged him. And that's when I knew what I could put on the table. My promise to put the words from my heart into a little book about America's white table. And in the book, I used Gretchen's pictures and Samantha's song and Mama's story about Uncle John and his friend Mike, because I hoped that everyone who read it would set a white table on Veterans Day too. So the brave Americans the little table honors won't ever feel forgotten by the country they loved so much. Then in the salt on the little white table, I traced in the grains of their families' tears what each man and woman who serves America is to me, a hero. And that's when I saw the tears of pride fill my Uncle John's eyes. That's something that, as each of us, yesterday was the day that it was actually November 11th, and we commemorate today, that each of us has an opportunity to think about each day. We all have an opportunity to come to school, or go to work, or play, or read, or do whatever we would like because of gentlemen like Uncle John. If you get an opportunity, if you get a chance, and I know some of you, maybe perhaps a lot of you, know a veteran, when you have an opportunity, and it doesn't have to be on Veterans Day, it can be any day of the year, just say thank you to them. And they will appreciate that more than you probably will ever know. Because they chose in their lives to go serve, and sometimes were taken away from their families for many, many months, sometimes years at a time.